I don't know if you know this, but some people call you a fascist.
Yeah, they do. So I figure it's all right to call them a communist. Yeah, they call me a lot worse than I call them.
A lot of people listening to this, myself included, that doesn't think that Kamala is a communist.
I believe you have to fight fire with fire.
Politics is a dirty game.
It is a dirty game. It's certainly true.
How do you win at that game?
They suffer from massive Trump derangement syndrome, TDS, and I don't know if it's curable from their standpoint.
That's President Trump in a bombshell interview with podcaster Lex Fridman, and he did not disappoint. He went after Kamala, he talked marijuana, and he even hinted about exposing Jeffrey Epstein's client list. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot professor, and we're going to see the top 5 bombshells coming out of President Trump's controversial interviews. So make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let's dive right in. Bombshell number 5, Kamala will lead the nation toward communism. Trump made it absolutely clear that a Kamala victory in November would lead the nation down to absolute ruin.
I don't know that there'll be another election, and it's going to be a communist country, or close.
And there's a lot of people listening to this, myself included, that doesn't think that Kamala is a communist.
Well, she's a Marxist.
Her father's a Marxist.
That's right.
And she's
It's
advocating.
a little unusual, you know.
She's advocating for some policies that are towards the direction of democratic socialism, let's say. But there's a lot of people that kind of know the way government works, and they say, well, none of those policies are going to actually come to reality. It's just being used during the campaign to, groceries are too expensive. We need them cheaper. So let's talk about price controls, and that's never going to come to reality.
It could come to reality. Look, I mean, she came out with price control. It's been tried like 121 different times at different places over the years, and it's never worked once. It leads to communism. It leads to socialism. It leads to having no food on the shelves, and it leads to tremendous inflation.
Now, I'm not trying to be a jerk here, but Friedman right there exemplified precisely what's just so pathetically brain dead about our current intellectual class. As long as the person in question is considered respectable, like Kamala is among our university elite, that status alone militates against her ideas being objectively detestable. She proposes the exact same solutions as Maduro's government in Venezuela or the president in Cuba, but somehow, some way, her policies are respectable. And they're respectable because they're strategically clever. She's being highly strategic and getting out her base on election day by promising socialist-inspired price controls. And Trump wasn't having it. He pointed out the absurdity of Friedman's position. If Kamala's base wants communism, and if she wins, that communism is ultimately what we're going to get if she wants to remain president. The very fact that her political base approves of the economically absurd positions that she's advocating suggests that that economic absurdity is the wave of the future if she wins. Bombshell number 4, Trump reaffirms support for legalizing marijuana.
Posted recently about marijuana, and that you're okay with it being legalized, but it has to be done safely. Can you explain your policy there?
Well, I just put out a paper. And first of all, medical marijuana has been amazing. I've had friends and I've had others and doctors telling me that it's been absolutely amazing, the medical marijuana. And we put out a statement that we can live with the marijuana. It's got to be a certain age, to buy it. It's got to be done in a very concerted, lawful way. And the way they're doing it in Florida, I think, is going to be actually good. It's going to be very good. But it's got to be done in a good way. It's got to be done in a clean way. You go into some of these places, like in New York, it smells all marijuana. You've got to have a system where there's control. And I think the way they've done it in Florida is very good.
So once again, as you heard, Trump reaffirmed his support for legalizing marijuana, but in an ironically conservative way. I mean, he pointed to what Ron DeSantis of Florida has been doing, which is voting on Amendment 3, which involves legalizing pot up to 3 ounces. And for Trump, it's very interesting because he doesn't want it legal in public places. So he talks about how he smells marijuana all over the place in New York City, and it absolutely stinks. And by the way, I'm with him on that. Every time I go into Manhattan, I smell pot literally everywhere. And it does. It stinks. It doesn't smell like it used to smell when I was a teen. So Trump is basically saying, look, if you want to smoke pot in the privacy of your own home, go for it. It should be legal. You should be able to buy it legally. But that doesn't mean you should be allowed to smoke it in public places, just like you're not allowed to smoke cigarettes indoors, right, in public places. It seems like it's actually a very good compromise that most voters support. Hey, gang, if you're finding yourself in the painful position of owing back taxes, we've got some patriots here that are ready to help you. As I'm sure you know, the IRS is currently on its way to making everyone pay up. They've hired thousands of new agents and sent over 5 million pay-up letters in 2024 alone. But if you're dealing with this mess, I want to connect you with a real, tangible solution. Don't give up your rights or deal with them alone. The IRS obviously is not your friend. Let Tax Network USA, a trusted tax relief firm, save you the time and money you deserve to keep. They've saved Americans, get this, over $1 billion in back taxes, and they've got the skills needed to secure you the best possible deal. From a few $1,000s to $10 million, business to personal taxes, let Tax Network USA restore your good standing so you can strengthen your financial foundation. When your situation is secure, you become the pillar of strength our nation needs. Click on that link below or call 1-800-245-6000 for a private free consultation or visit them at tnusa.com/Turley. Bombshell number 3, Trump admits he lost by a whisker in 2020. Now, a lot of leftists on social media are highlighting what they're calling this admission by Trump in the interview.
Then the second time, I got millions more votes than I got the first time. So I was told if I got 63 million, which is what I got the first time, you would win. You can't not win. And I got millions of more votes than that and lost by a whisker. And look what happened to the world with all of the wars and all of the problems.
And so now you're getting all of these media reports and left-wing hacks jumping up and down saying, you see, Trump just admitted he lost in 2020, he just admitted. But the problem with the lefty take on what Trump just said there is that literally moments later, he said this.
Right. I think the fraud was on the other side. I think the election was a fraud. And many people felt it was that. And they wanted answers. And when you can't challenge an election, you have to be able to challenge it. Otherwise, it's going to get worse, not better.
So Trump hasn't changed his position in the least. He still believes that the 2020 election was fraudulent. But the key here is that despite all of this supposed fraud, he still came within just 40,000 votes of winning. Trump fell just shy in Arizona. He fell shy of 10,000 votes in Arizona, 10,000 votes in Georgia, and 20,000 votes in Wisconsin, despite the most massive mail-in ballot campaign we've ever seen in our nation's history. 70% of all votes cast in 2020 were cast as mail-in ballots. That very method that a bipartisan committee, the Carter Commission, concluded was the most susceptible to fraud. 70% of all votes were cast in that way, and Trump still came within just a few thousand votes of winning. So you could say you lost by a whisker while at the same time readily admitting that the conditions for that loss were highly suspect. Bombshell number 2, Trump seeks an alliance with Joe Rogan over Robert Kennedy.
Let me ask you about my good friend Joe Rogan. So you had a bit of tension with him. So when he said nice things about RFK Jr., I think you've said some not so nice things about Joe, and I think that was a bit unfair. And as a fan of Joe, I would love to see you do his podcast because he is legit the greatest conversationalist in the world. So
Yeah.
what's the story behind the tension?
I don't think there was any tension. And I've always liked him, but I don't know him. I mean, I only see him when I walk into the arena with Dana and I shake his hand. I see him there. And I think he's good at what he does, but I don't know about doing his podcast. I mean, I guess I'd do it, but I haven't been asked, and I'm not asking them, I'm not asking anybody.
It sounds like a challenging negotiation situation.
No, it's not really a negotiation. And he's sort of a liberal guy, I guess, from what I understand. But he likes Kennedy. This was before I found this out before Kennedy came in with us. He's going to be great. Bobby's going to be great. But I like that he likes Kennedy. I do too. He's a different kind of a guy, but he's got some great things going. And I think he's going to be beyond politics. I think he could be quite influential in taking care of some situations that you probably would agree should be taken care of.
Now, what's so cool there, I think, is that this really is an extension of the realignment between the populist left and the populist right. Trump and Rogan aligning would be a very powerful extension of the Kennedy-Trump alignment. Now, we've been talking about how in Europe over the last few years, the populist left and the populist right are joining forces. They're forming alliances to take out effectively the establishment, their respective national establishments, their center-left, center-right globalist parties. We've been seeing that especially in Italy of late. We're starting to see something like that in particularly Eastern Germany between the AfD on the right and the Die Linke on the left. And now we're starting to see it here in the States. And Trump is alluding to that. He contrasted Rogan being more on the political left with the new political divide that's rising up, which is not so much a horizontal divide, left versus right, but more a vertical divide, the people versus the political class. That's the alliance of Trump and Kennedy, and an alliance of the people on both the left and the right, the populist left and the right, versus a vertical enemy, the permanent political class. And it sounded to me like Trump is basically extending an invitation to Rogan to join in this new political realignment, which would be absolutely amazing if he does. And the number one bombshell coming out of the interview is Trump is open to releasing classified info on UFOs and Jeffrey Epstein's client list.
What?
A lot of people are very interested in the footage of UFOs. The Pentagon has released a few videos, and there's been anecdotal reports from fighter pilots. So a lot of people want to know, will you help push the Pentagon to release more footage, which a lot of people claim is available?
Oh, yeah, sure. I'll do that. I would do that. I'd love to do that. I have to do that. But they also are pushing me on Kennedy. And I did release a lot, but I had people come to me and beg me not to do it. But I'll be doing that very early on. But I would do that.
There's a moment where you had some hesitation about Epstein, releasing some of the documents on Epstein. Why the hesitation?
I don't think I'm not involved. I never went to his island, fortunately. But a lot of people did.
A lot of people did. Did you hear that? A lot of people did. And it sounds like we're about to find out precisely who those people are in the second Trump term. You can imagine at the very least his openly volunteering the potential of releasing that list means that he's going to use Epstein's client list as political leverage in his second term. And it'll be very interesting to see how that plays out.